Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's good to be back. It's good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Hopefully you guys can see me fine. Hopefully you guys can hear me fine. It's been a couple weeks, so hopefully everything is up and running well. Let me know in the chat really quick that you can hear and see me, just because it's been a few weeks, so I want to make sure that my stuff didn't get all messed up, all my OBS settings. So I think we're good. My preview looks good, but let me know really quick in chat if everything is all right. It's so good to be back, everybody. I missed you guys a whole bunch. Let me tell you, I missed you guys so much. So for anyone that doesn't follow me on Twitter that might be here, whether you're here live or whether you're coming here later, the main reason that I was gone for a couple weeks was having some really bad mental health struggles for the last about 2 weeks. You know, anyone that's followed me for a while, whether it's Twitter or YouTube, knows that every once in a while I go through episodes like this, particularly during the winter. And winter's always a very, very difficult time for me, especially the longer it goes. And we're here at the end of February, which in the US where I live, it's late winter. So thank God it's finally almost behind me. But I apologize. That's why I took about 2 weeks off, because I just really was not in a state that I was capable of streaming, if I'm going to be honest with you. So things are rapidly improving, though, and I think that the worst is definitely behind me now. So, and spring's right around the corner. So things are looking up. So I apologize for that, guys, especially because the chat was on a heck of a run there. I want to say a really quick thank you, guys, that the last 4 chats in a row, I believe. Let me make sure of that. 2, 3. Yeah, the last 4 chats in a row all did over 1,000 views, which is the first time that's ever happened on this channel. So it's a bummer that I had to take that break right as the chat was really gaining traction. And I know if you're a big YouTuber or somebody watching this, you think 1,000 views, Benji, that's nothing. But for me, 1,000 views is very, very good. So it meant a lot to get 4 of those in a row. Thank you so much, guys. But enough about me, enough about my personal issues and my personal life. Let's get diving into why we're really here and why we do this every week, and that is to talk about the biggest news in the video game industry. If this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat and we get to the latest and biggest news in the video game industry. There's going to be 2 ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. You just type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me and I get to super chats immediately. As always, though, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. Before we start getting to your guys' questions and comments, let's really quick go over a couple of the big topics that we can go over today. Of course, we don't have to stick to these topics. You guys can ask me about whatever you want, but there's a couple big ones that we should dive into really quick before we start getting rocking and rolling. First of all, the biggest one, I think, probably in terms of like biggest news, at least of this week. I know I was off for a few weeks, so you guys can ask me about anything that's happened in the last couple weeks. But the biggest news going down right now, at least for my circle, right? Probably State of Play is bigger overall, but in terms of like my circle, in terms of sales, it's Hogwarts Legacy. Now, we knew that this thing was tracking to be a behemoth, right? We've been talking about that on this chat for probably the last year, that this thing was tracking massive. Well, it took a couple weeks, but we finally got some data, and boy, is that data freaking impressive. So we got a couple massive metrics we can talk about. First of all, Hogwarts Legacy sold 12 million units in only 2 weeks. Absolutely insane. This puts it as one of the biggest launches ever in the video game industry. It's not number 1, but it puts it among, right, in that territory of biggest launches in the video game industry. I mean, this is like close to Cyberpunk levels, guys. This is very, very close. This is Elden Ring type numbers. This is Cyberpunk type numbers, right? Cyberpunk did 13.7 million in the month of December, which was was a couple weeks, right? This is very, very close on its heels, right in that Elden Ring territory. We're looking at an absolute behemoth. And not only did, which I love this metric, by the way, not only did we get a units update for how many units Hogwarts Legacy sold, we also got an actual revenue figure, which is awesome because a lot of times we don't get that, or it's one or the other, right? Sometimes they'll just, like in the case of Call of Duty, oftentimes give you revenue numbers, but they won't give you units. And then a lot of times it's the opposite. You'll get a bunch of unit numbers, but you won't ever get revenue. I loved this PR because we got both. We got the 12 million units sold in 2 weeks, and we found out that it generated $850 million in revenue in that time period, guys. $850 million. This thing in just a week or two is going to be $1 billion game. Think about that. The budget for this was definitely big. If anyone hasn't played it, you can tell this game had a pretty beefy budget. It's going to be massively profitable. In fact, it already is massively profitable right now. But over the lifetime, it's already at pretty much $1 billion. Absolutely insane numbers for Hogwarts Legacy. There's a couple other things that we got some updates on. Elden Ring has now crossed 20 million sold lifetime. This completely annihilates everything else From Software has ever released. I put up, like, you know, its most recent From Software competition in terms of like Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. Completely annihilated both of those games. That game continues to just be an absolute beast. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft we can talk about, and so much more. So guys, start filling that chat up with your comments and questions, and we will get rocking and rolling. Okay. MD is going to kick us off here with the first super chat, a $2 super chat from MD here. Thank you so much, man. I think that's Matt Duffy. He just changed his handle to MD. So thank you so much, MD, for that 2 super chat. Favorite Linkin Park song? Heard their new song Lost. So a really fun question really quick before we get to the gaming stuff. You know, Linkin Park is a band that like blew up whenever I was young, and I will remember that One Step Closer, right? I believe that's the one. Yeah, One Step Closer was the very first song I ever heard from them, and I heard it back when I was young. Music videos were like a big deal, right? They were huge. Nowadays, music videos, not so much, right? Maybe they get some views on YouTube, but it's not like it used to be where like the music video was the thing. And I remember I saw the music video for One Step Closer, and at the time, I thought it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. These guys had like spiky hair, and they were wearing their guitars down low, and it was heavy, and I loved it. I was blown away by it, right? So I got caught up in Linkin Park for many, many years. If we're going to name some of my favorite songs by them, I would say Crawling, My December. I really liked Heavy, which was a newer song from them. Breaking the Habit. Numb/Encore with Jay-Z is amazing, and a ton, right? I think Linkin Park's actually a pretty great band. And, you know, I thought it was a little weird how that band became kind of known as like a meme band. Like people would be like kind of mean about them. To me, Linkin Park is nothing like let's say a Limp Bizkit, where Limp Bizkit was a band from that same era that's very easily memeable and probably deserves it. But Linkin Park has some legitimately great songs, like many, many great songs. So I always found that weird how they became like one of those bands. I think it was kind of just people pushing back against like that new metal era from then. But I think like Linkin Park's one of those bands that in retrospect, a lot of people realize nowadays truly was a great rock band, a great rock band, like truly. They have so many great songs. Now, you know what's weird? I'm saying all this stuff, but I actually haven't listened to Lost yet. I've heard it's good, but I have not listened to it yet, Matt. And thank you so much for that super chat. Highlander here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. Great to see you. Hey, Benji, I hope you're doing better. Yes, definitely improving. I wouldn't say I'm back yet by any means, but massively improved. I had carpal tunnel surgery on Tuesday. No gaming for 2 weeks. My daughter's happy as she will have top score on her arcade for at least 2 weeks. Well, Highlander, hope your surgery went well. Hopefully you will be, recovering quickly. Hopefully we're both, we're going through different things, but hopefully we'll both be back up and running at full speed here very, very soon, man. Thank you so much for that super chat. That's very generous of you. And I remember you saying that you had surgery coming up. So hopefully, Highlander, me and you are both back rocking and rolling. You said 2 weeks? All right, 2 weeks. Let's both get there, man. Thank you so much, Highlander, for that super chat. Very generous of you. Okay, super chats are cleared. Johnny G saying, what's up? Hope you're doing better. I am. Casual Gamer, hi, do you think pubs/devs will avoid/be scared to use the Marvel license since the last 3 third-party Marvel games didn't meet sales expectations, or do you think Marvel will remain lucrative? I get asked this almost every chat. Are devs/pubs going to learn and adapt from previous Marvel games' underperformance? What's more likely to happen, devs/pubs using Marvel license or avoid scared of it due to low sales? So I'm going to go over this really, really quick because I do get asked this very, very, very often, and people that watch this chat every week probably are tired of hearing me talk about it. I get why it gets brought up so much because Marvel is such a big brand, but my thoughts on this is that most of these Marvel games that are underperforming are not the types of games people are asking for. So, like, my response, I believe it might have even been last chat because it's been a few weeks now. Whenever we found out that Take-Two thought that Midnight Suns underperformed, I was like, what did you guys think was going to happen with that game? You made an XCOM card game. And I've heard it's great, right? I'm not knocking the game. I've heard they did a very amazing job on what they planned on that game being, but like, I don't know how you would have thought that would be big. From the day that thing was announced, I was like, this is going to be pretty niche. I never expected Midnight Suns to be big. Like, never, ever, ever, ever at any point. The genre is just not what people are asking for. Avengers, as we know, was not a great game, unfortunately. And again, it wasn't what people are asking for, a live service type title. Guardians of the Galaxy is closer to what people have been asking for, but we all have to remember, I think a lot of people forget, because in retrospect, people loved that game. That game was getting beaten over its E3 showing. People thought it looked absolutely terrible, and I actually myself thought it was not good looking. The marketing for it was horrendous. I'm not trying to be rude to the marketing team there, but they marketed Guardians of the Galaxy so poorly. And I'm not saying it's any individual person's fault, right? Just sometimes a marketing cycle doesn't go great. But it was very poorly marketed. So I don't think we could outright say that like Marvel games are just doomed to bomb. Look at what's happening with Hogwarts Legacy. Have we ever seen any other Harry Potter game sell like this? No, not even remotely close. It's because they've delivered on what people want. People wanted that Hogwarts, that Harry Potter type experience. It's not a coincidence that Spider-Man's so giant because it's literally what people are asking and begging for. So casual gamer, I'm not personally willing to write off Marvel games until we see bombs of like these types of games, right? If Wolverine bombs, ooh, that's worrying. If this upcoming Iron Man game bombs from Motive, which sounds like is the type of game we're talking about, a big single-player action-adventure game, if that bombs, ooh, now I'm a little worried, right? If the game from Amy Hennig, which is another single-player narrative-driven game, bombs, okay, right? These are the ones to me. If those 3 bomb, or let's say 2 out of the 3, if only Wolverine works out of those 3, then we should be like, guys, we need to really question what's going on with Marvel. But the reality is that these publishers are not making the types of games people want. Look at Suicide Squad. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions about Suicide Squad today. I definitely have some thoughts on Suicide Squad, and they ain't good. So yeah, let's wait and see. And pubs need to realize, like, why is Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order so huge? Why is Hogwarts Legacy so huge? Because these are the types of experiences that people want in these IP-driven games. Thank you so much for that, Casual Gamer. Batman Forever. Benji Boy, hi, do you think first-party engines take advantage of the hardware better than third-party engines because games like Ragnarok look better than most third-party games right now? I don't necessarily actually think so. I don't think it really... I think the main reason that these games look like first-party tend to look better than third-party, which isn't always the case, but a lot of times it is. I don't actually think it's because the engine much at all. I'm sure that there are some benefits to some of these in-house engines, but I actually think the main reason is actually two-piece. First of all, someone like Sony, for example, they have become so prestige that they can easily attract very high-caliber talent. Like, if you are a really high, like a very, very, like, super good artist, right? Or you're a super good engineer or something like that. You're super good at writing code, whatever it is, right? Anything in the industry. And you know, like, look at the pedigree of The Last of Us. I can go, or Naughty Dog in general. I can go work at Naughty Dog and I might be able to get a Game of the Year caliber game under my belt. If you go and look at Sony Santa Monica, You can be like, wow, if I go work at Sony Santa Monica, I can have on my resume potentially a Game of the Year caliber game. If I go to, Sucker Punch now, after the huge success of Ghost of Tsushima, I can have a massively selling well game and a massively successful critical and commercial game, right? Like, once you start this ball rolling like Sony has been able to over the last 10 years or so or whatever, you can just you can attract like the highest caliber talent. Like, people want to go and work on these games. So A, that is part of it. And then B, you're also only optimizing for a single platform, which I'm going to tell you is much easier than multi-platform development. If you're having to make a game run at launch and on Xbox platforms, PlayStation platforms, PC, possibly cross-gen, maybe even a Nintendo Switch version thrown in there, like, even if PlayStation and Xbox are very, very similar, they're not the exact same spec. And also the dev tools between the two platforms aren't the exact same. Same thing with a huge range of PC, right? You have so many different system requirements and system configurations. Like, that is a ton of work. People underestimate just getting these games out the door running, how hard it is when you're multi-platform. If you're only worried about, let's say, PlayStation, and now we know PC, but PC is often coming later on these PlayStation games. So you're like, I'm literally making it for just PS5 or at most PS5 and PS4. That's going to be a lot easier. So again, this isn't me saying like that the engines have no advantage for first party. I'm sure that they have some advantages, but I think those two things are actually the bigger deal. Less platforms you have to optimize for, and also Sony in particular right now can attract extremely high caliber talent. Drift 23. Hope you're better. I am. I'm definitely improving. So if Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League doesn't do well, and you think WB Games should do solo DC games in the future, could a Superman game happen this console generation? So Suicide Squad. Okay. You guys know that I tend to try to err on the side of positivity. I try to be a very positive person. I'm just going to be honest with you. That way you guys know where I'm coming from. I do not believe that Suicide Squad looks good. I thought that the showing for Suicide Squad was quite poor. And this doesn't mean the game is going to be bad. Maybe when this game comes out, we'll all love it. Maybe it's a 90 Metacritic game. You never know until it's out and you get your hands and play on the thing. I will say I thought its showing was like... I'd go so far as to call it shockingly poor. So I am at a loss that this is what Rocksteady took. How many years now, guys? How many years? Let's check. When did Arkham Knight come out? 2015, I want to say. Yes, 2015. So 8 years, because this is May, so it's 8 years. Rocksteady took 8 years to make this game, guys. And I don't know if there's like anything that happened in between. There's some rumblings that maybe they tried to do like a Justice League game at some point, or they tried to do maybe even a Superman prototyped game at some point, and eventually this is what they landed on. So I'm not telling you specifically Suicide Squad maybe. Maybe that was a 5-year dev cycle, and those other 3 years they were doing other things. But no matter what, it took 8 years to get here. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am extremely confident that Suicide Squad won't perform anywhere near the level of sales of Arkham Knight or Arkham City. I don't think it'll be even close. I hope I'm wrong. I'm always rooting for games to succeed. It's shocking to me that they took this long to develop this game. Now, this goes back to exactly what we've been talking about, where we're actually seeing like the most successful attempts at licensed IP right now outside of, let's say, mobile. This goes right back to what I was talking about. What are they? Jedi Survivor, which is coming up, which is tracking enormous. Jedi Fallen Order, Spider-Man, etc. I don't know that a games as a service, because that's what it is. They keep telling you how it's a single player game, but guys, you can just watch the video for yourself. You can play it single player just like you can play Avengers single player. It's not a great experience, I'm sure, overall. I hope to be wrong. I hope when this thing comes out it's amazing. But if you go back and watch that trailer, like half of the footage is just shooting weak spots on enemies for like 30 seconds at a time, just sitting there shooting a weak spot and getting gear. And again, maybe this thing's amazing. Look at the huge success of Destiny. I don't want to just sit here and outright tell you that Suicide Squad is going to be this terrible game and it's going to bomb, but I am not remotely optimistic about either its quality or its sales performance. So I hope to be wrong here, but I would say, and I think I've mentioned this on a chat before quite a while ago, I personally believe that the decision to go from Arkham Knight to kill a brand that had so much momentum. Guys, people forget Arkham City, Arkham Knight, these games sold so much, it's crazy. Massive commercial success, massive critical success. To completely kill a brand like that, just killed it. They just stepped away from it for 8 years. To completely kill a brand like that and take 8 years to make this, I personally believe it's one of the most confusing decisions I've ever seen in the history of the video game industry at an individual level, an individual studio level. I've almost never seen such a shocking decision, and I'm telling you right now that leadership at both Rocksteady and WB are going to be hoping to God that this thing sells well, because there's going to be some serious questions asked after this if it underperforms. Like, what were you guys doing? And again, I don't want to sit here and tell you I'm better at decision making than all these people that get paid all this money, but I think a lot of people are thinking like what I am right now. I think a lot of people are sitting there going, how do you go from Arkham City and Arkham Knight to this, especially with this long of a dev cycle? It's one thing if they wanted to try something different and they got this Suicide Squad game out in 3 or 4 years, but they were like, hey, we're not done with the Arkham series either. Or, hey, guys, don't worry, this is just something we're trying and we're also going to make a Superman game or something. Then I think it'd be slightly more understandable, but it's more the fact they completely killed a 10+ million selling per entry franchise to take 8 years to make this. I mean, it's shocking, guys. It is truly shocking. So we're going to have to see what happens, man. We're going to have to see what happens. Right now, I think things don't look good. I hope to be wrong. I hope this sells 20 million units and gets a 90 Metacritic, but I am not remotely optimistic about that. Now, could a Superman game happen if this bombs? We're going to have to see, because James Gunn is now completely changing the way that WB Games works. And WB Games are now going to be tied into the cinematic DCEU, and including using the same actors and stuff. So I think we need to be waiting to see what the heck is going to happen. I'll tell you what, you ain't getting another Suicide Squad game, I don't think. Or at least not this type of Suicide Squad game, because again, I think it's going to be a commercial failure, I'm being honest with you. But we'll have to see. It's impossible to predict the future of WB Games right now, at least in terms of the DC side, until we see what's going on with James Gunn. I know that he announced his movie slate, but he hasn't announced anything with gaming other than it is directly tied into the movies and shows as well. So DC, who knows? Who knows what's going on with DC Games? I could not even tell you. I do think that Rocksteady is going to go to a single-player game after this. I do believe so. I don't know if it's going to be a return to the Batman Arkham games, if it's going to be a Superman game, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a one and done, because I think it's going to underperform, and WB is going to be like, Rocksteady, we got to get you back to what made you successful. So that is the one thing I will predict. I will predict that they will make some sort of solo single-player game, whether that's Superman, Batman, who knows. We need to see what happens with James Gunn. I think we had a super chat drop. We did. Highlander here with a 20 super chat. My God, Highlander, that is extremely generous, dude. You do not need to do that. Microsoft made 10-year deals with Nintendo and NVIDIA GeForce Now. I had a feeling we'd get to this. Pretty big topic that I was, away while this was happening. Does that take away from Sony's argument about Microsoft keeping Call of Duty from other platforms? China maybe approved the deal. Does that affect CMA and EU? So, again, as I always want to caution whenever I talk about this stuff, I am not a lawyer. I am not an expert in law, and I am not someone like Hogue Law, who we all miss. So keep all of that in mind whenever I give you guys my perspective on this. This is not coming from a place of super educated, I know what I'm talking about, whereas like sales, I'm definitely not an expert. I don't get paid to do sales, looking at analysis, but I think most people think I'm decent at it. This is going to be more from like an educated as best as I can perspective. Now, do I think that this strengthens Microsoft? Yes, especially because NVIDIA was one of the ones that didn't outright say they were opposing the deal, but NVIDIA was one of the ones who said that they were like very cautious, right? They put up some caution wording around it. And really, I think we can now all see the reason they did that is NVIDIA wanted a contract too, which they ended up getting. So smart play from NVIDIA. Now we can look back in retrospect. I had some people at the time, whenever I was first reporting, or sharing, I should say, because I wasn't the one that broke the story. But when I was sharing news that NVIDIA was, making some comments about we're not so sure about this deal, I had a lot of people being like, that's super hypocritical of NVIDIA to say that, considering some of the things they've done in the past, like trying to do the ARM deal. And really, we can now see NVIDIA behind the scenes they were playing a little hardball, right? NVIDIA probably wasn't really against it, but they were like, hey guys, we want a contract too. let's make some sort of deal here. You sweeten the pot for us and we'll be right on your side, Microsoft, which is exactly what happened. Now NVIDIA's tweeting about it, like from their official channels, they were like congratulating Microsoft and they're like, we can't wait to see you on the platform. So that's really what happened here. NVIDIA was just playing a bit of hardball so they could get a contract too. They probably saw some of the reports going around that Nintendo was getting a contract. And they're like, let us in on this too, guys. So I think it does strengthen Microsoft's argument, especially because now Microsoft is like got it signed, sealed, and delivered with Nintendo, which, by the way, Call of Duty has skipped Nintendo for a very long time. So that's not just what's the word I'm looking for? That's not a hollow statement, right? It'd be one thing to have a hollow statement. I think you could look at Microsoft keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation, for example. I think you could make the argument that that's a bit of a hollow promise because, like, if you're a regulator, you can look at that and you can be like, guys, it just makes sense for it to be on PlayStation anyways. Look at how much money you get on it, and it's already there every single year anyways. So it's like, yeah, you're promising this, but like, are you really coming from a good place? With Nintendo, it's not a hollow promise because there hasn't been a Call of Duty game, I don't think, since the beginning of Wii U. I don't remember the last one. I want to say it was maybe one of the Black Ops games early in Wii U, but it's been a very long time. So this isn't just, Microsoft just doing something casually. If they're truly going to make Call of Duty a main, Nintendo moving forward for the next 10 years, you guys are getting a lot of Call of Duty support. I mean, that truly is giving it to a whole nother audience that currently does not have it. So I would say that is a very good sign. I would say the NVIDIA thing is a very good sign as well. So does it strengthen it? In my opinion, yes. Is it enough to get this over the bump with the CMA, with Europe, with maybe the FTC? I don't know. I will say that the FTC right now is, I think they're going to win against the FTC in general. FTC is in a really bad spot. Multiple people have now left the FTC because of leadership there. Multiple people, which ain't a good look. Microsoft, let me tell you, is going to hammer that in court, right? If this really goes to court, trust me, Microsoft lawyers are going to bring that up. They're going to say, how can we trust that the FTC is acting out of good faith whenever you have people leaving the FTC and the explicit reason they are leaving the FTC is they say you are not honoring what this is supposed to be here for. So whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you. But trust me, Microsoft lawyers are going to use that. We'll have to see. Again, I'm not an expert in law. I can't tell you that this is going to get them over the hill with CMA and EU, but I do think it strengthens it. I do believe it does strengthen it because it's not just hollow promises. They're actually getting contracts on this stuff. So we'll have to see, Highlander, but it's a good move from them. I think we had a couple more super chats. Thank you so much, guys. RRD with a 2 super chat. Rocksteady plus TMNT would be amazing. Hope you're well. That would actually be awesome. I would love to see a Rocksteady Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. That to me is something that would actually make a lot more sense with their wheelhouse than like Suicide Squad looks. I know Suicide Squad on the surface makes more sense because it's Batman related. They can still put it in their Arkham universe. But like if you watch the gameplay, it doesn't really look anything like their games. It looks just like big, huge open environments and a lot of flying around. And there were things I thought were good about what they showed. So I don't want to be like only saying negatives. I thought a lot of the animations were great. I thought the cutscenes looked great. Story might be actually pretty interesting. I thought what they did there with the Flash was pretty powerful, where he's saying like, you got to kill us to Wonder Woman. I thought that was like a good moment. So like, you know I was trashing this game a bit earlier, but that's not to say that I don't think that there are signs of good things here. It's just I think that the core gameplay loop is going to be a big problem for them. TMNT is super interesting because that would be a little more grounded, I think, in terms of gameplay. Maybe not so much flying all around in this huge environment, fighting random ads. You could make it like a lot, tighter, kind of more like the Batman game where it's like really close quarters combat. That would be actually amazing. That's a good idea. I don't think we'll see it. I have a feeling whatever they're going to work on next will be something in James Gunn's DC universe. But I like the idea. That would be a good pairing, actually. I think they would make a pretty sweet Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. I do agree with that. Yeah. And you could do it to where maybe like you pick which turtle you want to play as like before the mission. So you don't have like kind of what you're seeing with Suicide Squad here, where there's like this big, drama around the multiplayer elements. If they wanted to make a single player, you could still do something like that, like pick a turtle and go through the mission. So we'll have to see, but it's a good idea. George Corona III here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, George Corona. That is very generous. Shinji Mikami leaving Tango doesn't exactly help the Microsoft poor management of studios narrative, which is a bummer. They wish him well in the future. Do you think he's actually retiring? Resident Evil 9. Yeah, this is a bummer, and what a poorly aged tweet that I had. A lot of times, my tweets tend to age well, I'll be honest with you, because I think a lot before I send a tweet. Like, I'm not one of those people that's constantly throwing out hot takes on my Twitter account. And part of the reason I do that is because I try to like analyze things, and a lot of times those hot takes age very poorly for people. But one of my tweets that has aged poorly is I sent out a tweet like right around the time Hi-Fi Rush was coming out, and I was like, hey, Microsoft, treat Shinji Mikami well. Like, this guy's literally a legend in the industry. I thought he could do a lot to help them in their like Japanese side of development and like, attracting talent, and now he's leaving. Now, I think that he is not retiring because he has not said anything about retirement. He didn't say he's retiring. Microsoft didn't say he's retiring. Tango hasn't said he's retiring. Maybe I'm wrong, but he has said nothing about retirement. So I am doubtful that he's retiring. It is weird that he is leaving the company that he founded. I have two guesses here. One of them could be that he just does want to step away from having such a like hands-on responsible position, because he has talked a lot. Now, he hasn't said he's retiring right now, but he has said in the past that he like does feel like his career is winding down, and he does feel like now he's more of like a mentor and leadership type thing. So who knows? Maybe he does want to just be a little bit more like, doing something not near as hands-on in the day-to-day. Because if you're the head of Tango like he was, I'm sure there's a ton of responsibility on that, right? Whether it's the economics of the company, hiring people, like he's going to be involved in so much stuff. I'm sure he has a team that also is doing the hiring and all of that and the economics of it. But he's going to be, if you're the head of the studio, your hands are going to be in all of those bags. So it could be just like, he's talked about this before, like he's winding down his career and he just doesn't want to do that sort of stuff anymore. We also don't know if he got a big payout, right? He might have gotten some sort of kind of big payout whenever Microsoft bought the company. We don't know. Like, you don't know how that works. Who knows, right? We don't know the intimate details of the Microsoft acquisition with Bethesda deal. Maybe he got some sort of big bag whenever this all happened. And now he's like, hey, I got a lot of money and I kind of want to just chill now. So we'll see. George, I don't think he's fully retiring. I think he will be involved in the industry in some way. Do I think he's going back to Capcom to work on Resident Evil 9? No. I suspect if he is staying in the industry, it will be more of a like I said, less responsible, less hands-on type position. He might just be, being some sort of mentor or thing like that. Or maybe he wants to do some sort of indie project. I don't know. But we'll have to see. Split End 89 with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Split End. Series S holding back Baldur's Gate 3 question. Great to see you, Split End. Thank you so much, buddy. Thanks for always being there for me. So for anyone that has missed this, Baldur's Gate 3 was announced at the State of Play yesterday as coming to console, right? But all that was shown was PlayStation 5. And at the end of the trailer, it just said coming to PS5. And a lot of people were like assuming that would probably just mean console in general. Because if you pay attention to a lot of these State of Plays, a lot of multi-platform games will say like coming to PlayStation, but they're actually multi-platform. They're just not going to advertise the other platforms in Sony's own show. So a lot of people were like, okay, I'm assuming this is coming to Xbox as well. But then afterwards, there was no pre-order for it. And if you went to the facts and questions about the game on Baldur's Gate's website, it said it's coming to PC, Mac, and PlayStation. Again, no mention of Xbox. And you could pre-order the collector's edition, and it was only PC and PlayStation. So suddenly, people are assuming, myself included, if you're not mentioning Xbox anywhere, it's not in the trailer, it's not up for pre-order, your own website doesn't list it, a lot of us started assuming, I guess this is a console exclusive. Well, they've actually come out and clarified that there is going to be an Xbox version coming, but it's not going to be at launch. So, and they said that this is just because of some sort of error, like issue. They can't get the Xbox version out in time for launch. So, is it the Series S? Maybe. I would say it is a weird response because I'm guessing, and I haven't played the early access, but I'm guessing this game's designed to run on PCs that are weaker than Series S. I would think. A lot of PC games right now are, the spec, they'll run on something weaker than a Series S. You might have to lower the settings a bunch, but you can get them running on fairly weak hardware, a lot of PC games. Again, not all. I don't know how demanding this game is. I'll tell you that I thought the PlayStation trailer looked like it was running rough. I'm very excited for the game coming to console, but it did not look like it had a remotely steady frame rate on PlayStation. So they could just be having issues with the console version in general, Split End. And maybe since PlayStation does have just more raw horsepower when you're not accounting for Series S, right? When you're just looking at PlayStation 5 itself with, no 2 SKU option. Maybe they're already having some issues getting this stable on console in general. PlayStation just has way more overhead compared to a Series S, and maybe they're like, all right, let's just focus on the PlayStation version for now. You could be right. I don't know that for sure, but not impossible. Not impossible. Because, again, that frame rate was not solid. If you watch that trailer, I don't know if it was just the way the trailer was uploaded or what, but that was choppy, dude. So if it's choppy on a PS5, I imagine that the Series S version would also be very much struggling. So it could be. It could be something like that. All right, Super Chats are cleared, guys. Thank you so much. All right. Joe Secchi here. Benji, what is up? A bit of a possibly hot take. Don't you think there is a connection between the increased PS5 supply worldwide and the decrease in Xbox sales? I'm starting to wonder if people didn't simply buy a Series S because it was the only way to easily upgrade to a next-gen console, but know that supply is there, Xbox demand is falling back to last-gen levels. A couple things. First of all, I would say that Series S has pretty much met demand, yes. Series S, we can say, occasionally you'll start to see it dip a little bit out of stock in the US again, but it's not any sort of severe shortages anymore in the US. So if we look at Series S specifically, has that pretty much saturated demand, like to a normal level? Not to where it's like they're never going to sell a Series S again, but to where it's just like a normal console, right? Where you can just walk into a store and buy it. The way consoles have pretty much always been until recently, by the way. There's a few exceptions like the Wii at its peak, but like most consoles for the entire history of the video game industry, you can, in general, outside of like the launch month or two, walk into a store and buy it. I would say Series S is at that point now, where it's just, shipments have met demand now. They're pretty much just stable, whatever. Series X is not even remotely there, particularly in the US. I don't live in Europe. I can't tell you the exact situation in Europe. I can tell you in the United States, Series X isn't even remotely meeting demand. Not even close. In fact, Series X shipments are abysmal. and I talked about this, I think, 2 or 3 chats ago. The number one priority at Microsoft right now, outside of getting games released, of course, needs to be how the heck do you improve Series X like manufacturing? Because right now the gap between PlayStation 5 and Series X hardware shipments, I'm going to use a strong word here, they're downright embarrassing. Now, I'm not telling you that, it's easy for Microsoft to fix this. I'm sure it's a logistical nightmare. But the gap between how much Sony is able to ship PlayStation 5 right now compared to how much Microsoft has been able to ship Series X is it's a catastrophe. Like, there's no other really way to phrase it. It's an actual catastrophe what's happening right now. They're just not shipping Series X's. Like, they're essentially not shipping them in the United States. Very low volumes. So, I don't know what the answer is. Again, I'm sure it's a logistical nightmare, but they have got to figure out the Series X situation. Priority number 1 needs to be getting games out the door. But priority number 2 needs to be, how do we fix this? Because it's bad. So that's my opinion in terms of like hardware sales. Series S, yeah, we're pretty much, they don't need to make more Series S than they're already making. It's at a fine level. Series X, though, they're not close. They're not close, especially in the US. Again, I don't know about Europe, but in the United States, it's not close to meeting demand. So we'll have to see. The other thing we need to keep in mind, is the raw demand for Xbox back to last gen levels. I would say partially, I think that's because, guys, we got to be honest, last year was a terrible year for Xbox. It just was. Do I suspect that this year's demand levels are going to be far below last year's demand levels? Actually, no. If they can figure out their Series X production cycle, I think that we'll see growth year over year this year, because I think games like Starfield are going to seriously push some hardware if they're good. So keep that in mind. It's hard to have a super high level of demand when you are not releasing games. Xbox, let's just be honest, they had a terrible 2022. They almost launched nothing. They launched a handful of very small games. Pentiment, very small. Loved it, very small. That ain't going to push hardware. As Dusk Falls, I actually really liked that game. I actually shockingly liked that game. But again, As Dusk Falls ain't going to sell no units of hardware. So they haven't released games that are going to push hardware at all last year. So it's hard to keep that demand curve high. So what they need to really do this year, games like Starfield, Redfall, Forza need to be great. Those games need to push hardware, and they got to figure out Series X production. They do those things, and again, I don't expect it to reach PS5 levels. I've been telling you guys for a while, PlayStation 5 is going to be the best-selling platform worldwide this year. I think you're all starting to probably come on board with me on that, even maybe some of you that thought maybe Switch could do it again. If you look at Japan, if you look at US, if you look at Europe, I think you're probably joining the Benji wagon that, yeah, PlayStation 5 is going to be the best-selling platform in 2023. So, again, I don't think they're going to reach PlayStation 5 levels this year, but they could have growth, because 2022 was not good. All right. Drift 23. If Suicide Squad fails to meet expectations, could Discovery sell WB Games or some devs like WB Montreal, Rocksteady? Could these studios get shut down, dissolved, sold? Should WB focus on single-player games? I don't think they will sell any studios or shut them down right now because, again, of James Gunn. I think they're going to experiment because they're probably essentially viewing this all as a clean slate. They're probably viewing games like Suicide Squad and Gotham Knights the same way that they're viewing movies like The Flash and Aquaman and Shazam, where they're like, this is the end of an era and we're about to start a new era. So I don't think you're going to see anyone close down, anyone shut down, regardless of performance right now. What I would say, Drift 23, is let's say in 3, 4, 5 years, once we start getting these studios making James Gunn DC Universe games, and if those also underperformed or bombed, then yes, then we might, I'm not telling you they will be closed or shut down, but I wouldn't be shocked if we started to see some rumblings of things like that. Big layoffs, selling studios, things like that. But I think right now they're just in the same pattern they are with the movies, where they're like, hey, we have some of these DC projects that were already so far along whenever Discovery bought WB, and now we have a new vision of WB. They're probably just trying to get these out the door, and then start over again. So let's see, Drift 23. I wouldn't be too alarmed about Rocksteady or Montreal's future right now, but potentially after their next games. We need to see how those perform. Marvel Fanatic, ahoy, Benji. I know you want Spider-Gwen. Yeah, I do. But Venom has been booming in popularity in recent years. Do you think Insomniac is aware of that and is going to make him playable in Spider-Man 2 and or make a Venom game? I will be 0% shocked if Venom's playable in Spider-Man 2. 0% shocked. Now, a spin-off game also wouldn't shock me. As you said, I'm rooting for Spider-Gwen. I think if I could have a choice between Venom and Spider-Gwen, I'm going Spider-Gwen. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. will change things up and be easy to market in a way that Venom maybe won't be. Venom would still be huge, don't get me wrong. But I just think Spider-Gwen would be very cool to bring, a different dynamic to the whole Spidey universe that they're doing. But, and again, her suit is so sick. At least the white, black, and pink one, I love it. And I think it would be so sick to bring her into it. But I won't be shocked at all if they do a Venom spinoff instead. I will tell you, I expect Venom to probably be playable in Spider-Man 2, yeah. I don't know if it's going to be one of those things where it's like you play as Venom as much as you play as Miles or Peter. But remember how there was like those Mary Jane games in the first one where you could just, there was like 2 or 3 missions where you played as her? Won't be shocked at all if they do something like that with Venom, where he's not like a regularly playable character, but you get 2 or 3 missions as him. Would not be surprised at all. And I also wouldn't be shocked at a Venom game, and I wouldn't hate it either. It's just if you gave me a choice, I'm going to go Spider-Gwen. But Venom would be sick too. I'm down for either or. Insomniac are doing such a fantastic job with this series that it's like, it don't matter. Just give me more of them. Give me more of them, and I want them. Make them Insomniac. Blazing Flame. Is E3 going to die? Yes. The big 3 console makers left it. Could third-party publishers leave it too? How dead is E3? Could they save it? Are ESA going to put the final nail in the coffin for E3? I think E3 as we knew it is over. I don't think you will ever see E3 go back to the way it was. Now, could E3 survive as some sort of fan convention? Where there's a big sales floor, or not sales floor, but there's like a big show floor and some publishers show up and it's really just a fan experience, with some announcements, almost like Gamescom is in Germany. There's always some announcements at Gamescom for sure, but Gamescom is more about like the fan experience. It's more about having a giant show floor and tons, like record-breaking numbers of gamers coming in around Europe to play games and like get the experience. Could they turn E3 into something, which they were kind of trying to do, but could they go fully down that road? Like just E3 is the Gamescom equivalent in USA, where you get some announcements, sure, but it's really about the fan experience. I could see them surviving in some sort of way in that capacity. Is E3 as the main, here's how you get your crazy gaming news? Dude, that's done. It's over. That's never coming back. Sony's already pulled out and essentially said, we're not coming back. And Nintendo just announced today that they will not be at E3. Xbox will probably be there in some capacity, like in terms of like nearby showing their thing. But again, they're not going to be truly at E3. I think it's done in terms of how we envisioned it, in the past. But maybe they can do something with the fan experience to make it live on in a different way. Maybe. Ghost Tunnels, Benji, glad to see you back. Hope you are better. Take-Two consider Red Dead Redemption an important franchise. So is it safe to say Rockstar's next game after Grand Theft Auto 6 is Red Dead 3? Or do you think a new IP? Oh yeah, Red Dead 3 is absolutely going to happen. I always found it weird how some people were like, Red Dead Redemption 2 didn't sell near the level of Grand Theft Auto 5. We're never going to get another Red Dead. Because you did. Trust me, I saw people say that sort of thing. Dude, they're going to make Red Dead 3. What's Red Dead 2's lifetime sales at now? I mean, come on, it's stupid. What's it at again? As of last quarter, they just gave an update. It's over 50 freaking million units, dude. You're getting Red Dead 3. And I'm not saying, when I say dude, I'm not saying, you Ghost Tunnels. I'm saying the proverbial you. Like, yeah, you don't have a game sell 50 million copies and you don't make another one. Like, yes, there's going to be a Red Dead 3. Is Grand Theft Auto 6 the priority right now? Absolutely. But I think Grand Theft Auto is now in a state where there's one Grand Theft Auto game every 10 years or whatever. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get back to the days of, like how it was with like 3, Vice City and San Andreas, where there was like, they came out fairly close together, or even the jump from like 4 to 5. Like, I think you're getting one Grand Theft Auto game essentially every like 10 years moving forward. And they got to do something besides that. Like, Rockstar is huge. Like, their workforce is enormous. And of course, you're going to have a lot of people working on Grand Theft Auto Online, but you're also going to have tons and tons of devs sitting around like, what do we put them on next? We're paying all these people. We're not going to have that many people working on just GTA Online. So yeah, I think they'll make Grand Theft Auto 6, and after that, a core team is going to start right up on Red Dead Redemption 3, absolutely. I don't think they've started yet. Maybe in some very early pre-production type thing, where maybe they're talking about ideas with a very small core team, but no, they're all in on GTA 6 now. But yeah, I definitely expect Red Dead 3 to happen, absolutely, yeah. It'll still be years away. GTA 6 isn't even out yet, but yes, Red Dead 2 sold 50 million copies. They're gonna make more. If it sold like 10 million, then you'd be like, someone as big as Rockstar, 10 million is a lot of copies for a lot of games, but for Rockstar, maybe, you could better prioritize things. But we're talking 50 million units, they'll make more. Logan Hardy. Hi, Benji. Hope you are doing well. Showcase is soon. What's your hype level? High, because apparently I'm hearing it is huge. So we'll have to see. I don't got no details like Jeff Grubb does, but the word around the street is that it's a huge showcase. We're talking about Sony. Supposedly it's pre-E3. My prediction right now is May. I don't know that at all, firsthand knowledge, not in any way, shape, or form. This is just a prediction. But my prediction is May. And it's going to be big, I think. Real big. Like open the hatches big. Multiple first-party announcements, I believe, yes. And when I say multiple first-party announcements, I don't just mean like we're finally going to see Spider-Man 2 again. I mean like, or, we're finally going to see The Last of Us multiple. I mean like, what's Sucker Punch up to? What's Bend up to? I think you might start seeing some of this stuff. So big. Expectations are very high. Make sure there's no super chats. I don't believe there is. There was. Joseki with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Joseki. Opinions on Nintendo Switch plus Odyssey bundle at $300 plus movie hype. Good to see. My predictions around Switch continue to be that it will year-over-year decline this year, but still sell very strong. I expect it to be the number 2 selling platform of the year. I expect PlayStation 5 is number 1, Switch is number 2, and Xbox Series is number 3. So the fact that a console this old, I still think is going to be the second best selling platform of the year. That's great to see. So it sounds like a very solid bundle. Movie hype, guys, I'm not exaggerating here. I think it has the potential for $1 billion box office. I really think it might. Guys, the social metrics for this thing are insane. And again, I know that you can't always trust social metrics. We see the inverse in multiple ways. Sometimes huge social metrics and not huge sales. Sometimes somewhat low social metrics and and huge sales. But to be honest with you, often, not always, often, social metrics and market performance are pretty hand in hand, guys. One of the reasons, why did you guys think that I was so confident in Hogwarts Legacy's performance sales-wise before this thing was ever out? Its social metrics were insane. The views of the PlayStation State of Play for it, as well as the very original announcement trailer, were insane. Like, they're a useful metric. They are not gospel. Sometimes social media metrics can lead you astray, but very oftentimes, look at Spider-Man No Way Home, guys. That trailer did ridiculous numbers, went on to do almost $2 billion at the box office. So I will tell you that the movie hype for Mario tracking wise on social media is ridiculous. I will not be shocked at all if this thing hits $1 billion. And if it does, you are definitely going to see a Mario Odyssey sales boost and a new Super Mario Brothers boost and whatever boost. You're going to see a massive boost on Mario software performance. I don't know that you'll see a massive boost on Switch hardware specifically, only because Switch hardware is already so high. If this thing was only at like 50 million, I think you might see an insane hardware boost. But the fact that Switch is already getting close to 130 million units, right? It's headed that way. There's only so much more install base you can squeeze out of that. So I don't know that you see, hardware surge, but I think you'll see the Mario games get big bumps. Yeah, big bumps. And it's tracking great. And Joseki says, I never thought Switch could be the top 2023 system. Honestly, it's ancient at this point, and I'm pretty bullish on Nintendo announcing next hardware before the end of the year. I agree with you on both of them, Joseki. We're on the total same page there. Total same page. I just know some people did still think that Switch would edge it this year, but I think it's become pretty clear it'll be PlayStation this year. But again, that's not a knock on Switch. Look at how long Switch has been around, and it's still going to have very high sales this year. It just looks like PlayStation will take it. All right. Where are we back at with your free questions? Bob, in the first 2 months of this year, we've got Hi-Fi Rush and Hogwarts Legacy, two kid-friendly games which can also be enjoyed by adults. Do you see more demand for games like this in the future? Yes. I've talked about this on the chat tons. The biggest way that PlayStation and Xbox have completely dropped the ball the last 15 years is, and third-party publishers, is how they've abandoned the younger demographic. It's really disheartening to see, to be honest with you. And it's because they got so scared of mobile and they became making so much money off these M-rated games. Like, that's literally what happened. Mobile started surging, and they assumed, oh, kids are just going to all play games on mobile phones now. And B, we're making tons of money off stuff like Grand Theft Auto and stuff, so why even take the risk? But the reality is guys, very good family-friendly titles. Look at how much the Crash Bandicoot trilogy sold. Look at how well the Spyro Remaster trilogy sold. Both those were massive hits for Activision. Look at all the success Nintendo has. Look at Pokemon, look at Mario, look at Zelda. I can go down the list. Like, look at Hogwarts Legacy, look at Hi-Fi Rush, which looks like it did pretty well for them. Now, does that mean you just abandon M-rated games? Not at all. Are most of these games I listed kiddie games? No. We're talking about games, though, that anyone can play them. You could be, 65 years old and love Hogwarts Legacy. You could be 10 years old and love Hogwarts Legacy. Third-party publishers and first-party have done a terrible job outside of Nintendo of courting that younger demographic. And I think that's a very concerning thing to do, especially if you want this younger demographic coming up right now to want consoles in the future. Now, again, I know everyone's preaching about how the world's moving beyond console. And yes, is that somewhat true? Sure. But I think that you still want to sell 100 million consoles if you can for the foreseeable future, right? How many kids growing up with Nintendo Switches right now are going to want that next Nintendo platform? Tens and tens of millions of them. If you're Xbox and PlayStation and you just abandon that demographic and you just let them all buy Switches, they're not growing up on PlayStation. They're not growing up on Xbox. And I know there are some that are, guys. I'm just saying, you want to also have games that are attractive to those demographics. I myself have worked retail for a long time, guys. Long time. And I cannot tell you how often parents come in and they say they're buying a Switch. And literally one of the things they say is, I looked at PlayStation and Xbox and I didn't see many games on there for them. Like, that is a real statement that happens. A real statement. I can tell you, work retail, it happens. They go over to the Switch aisle and they see all these games that their kids can play and they buy them Switches. So, like, yes, the industry in general needs to do much better about making more family-friendly titles. They just have to, especially if they want them to keep buying consoles and games like this in the future outside of Nintendo. So, yes. I think there was a super chat. Let me see that. There's a 5 super chat from J2 Blue Engage. Thank you so much for that super chat. Very generous of you. Do you think it's possible that the Switch will sell more units than DS or PS2, or do you think it will get very close? Oh, it's going to be close. Now, can it beat them? Listen, if Switch beats those consoles, it all comes down to the successor. It all comes down to the successor, in my opinion. As long as, here's what I'll say. I think Switch has a very real chance of reaching DS and PS2 if Switch is still going to be heavily manufactured and heavily supported for quite a while, which is what I suspect will happen. If Nintendo does something weird and like really quickly moves on to their next console and really quickly dropped support for Switch 1, maybe things get more like, we'll have to see. But J2 Blue, I think there's a real chance. It's not that far away. What's the gap right now? What is that gap? It's close. It is close. PS2, let me see. I think we're right in that 30 million range, right? Right? I think we're right. We're right there, I believe. Yeah, 154 for DS and 157 for PS2. So, dude, we're right in that 30 million unit range. I think it can do it. J2 Blue, if I had to predict right now, I think it does it. I think it does. Again, the only way this doesn't happen, in my opinion, is if Nintendo's just very weird about how they handle the successor. But as long as they handle it how I think they're going to, where Switch 1 consoles are still going to be manufactured for a while, even after the successor comes out, where they're still going to have a lot of cross-gen games on it, I think it does it. I think it does. I mean, it's close, dude. We're talking a 30 million gap now. Like, I know that sounds like a lot, but when you look at Switch's yearly output, even on the slow decline, I think it's going to do it, which is shockingly incredible. But I think it is. Cookie Cutter. Hello, Benji. Do you think companies are getting better at squashing leakers? Yes. There's very few leakers compared to a couple of years ago. Why do you think many leakers like Snitch quitted leaking? Yes, they are getting better about it. And they're also, from what I've heard, getting more aggressive legally about it. There were people that were trying to find out who Snitch was to legally go to court over Snitch. So I think we all kind of theorize how Snitch was able to get their info. I don't want to say too much here because I don't want to necessarily get Snitch caught, but people behind the scenes kind of think they know how Snitch was able to get the info that they did. And Snitch might have been getting, Snitch put out this statement that, and I don't know Snitch personally, but they put out this statement that they're just stepping back, because they want to, and they were just trying to, increase the hype for things. I think maybe that's partially true, but I think part of it's the heat that was coming because trust me, I know there were companies that were legally trying to find them. So, that's part of it. And I also think I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think that the way that some people put leakers on pedestals, and this comes from someone that at one point in time wanted to get into that leaking game, I think it's a little worrying. Because a lot of the leak game is because of ego. I'm just being honest with you because I've talked one-on-one to a lot of these people. Not all of them. There are some that are doing it for real journalistic work. A lot of them do it for ego. They like the attention. They like the likes. They like the whatever. And they want to stroke their own ego. This isn't everyone, to be clear. I don't think Jeff Grubb does it for Jeff Grubb's ego. I think Jeff Grubb really is just presenting good information and doing what he can to dig up information. Jason Schreier, he's a great reporter. He's simply reporting on the industry. I'm just saying these more let's not go from the top of the list. Let's go for these more mid or lower range leakers. A lot of it's ego based. And just be careful stroking people's ego too much. So that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, I do know that they are getting better about locking this stuff down too. Way better than they used to be. Way better. They're a lot more aggressive about this stuff. So that's part of why you see less. Way more aggressive. Nintendo was always kind of notorious for being aggressive against leaks. That's why there was all these, like, people would always joke about the Nintendo ninjas coming to get people that did leaks, because Nintendo's always been aggressive about it. But PlayStation and Xbox have also gotten way more locked down than they used to be. Way more. Yoda Soda. Many live service games shut down recently, like Rumbleverse. Do you think dev/pubs should move on from live service? Is it a dying trend? Yeah, this got a lot of attention whenever this broke. I will say that I'd be careful with live service unless you have a real strong pull. Like, you got to have a great game, a truly great game. And the biggest reason why, here's the biggest reason why live service has actually become such an issue. There's one sec, I gotta sneeze. Sorry. Allergies. There's one thing that makes these games way harder to succeed right now than single player in terms of, like, finding a hit, in my opinion. I actually think that live service is becoming riskier than single player is. And let me explain to you why. Right now, if you are a fan of single player games, right? If you're trying to court that single player demographic who mostly plays single player games, when they beat a game, it takes them 15 hours, takes them 20 hours, takes them, let's say, a long game. It takes them 50 hours to beat. They still beat that game, though, and then they're looking for their next game. With these live service games, there are only so many people playing games that are multiplayer at a time. There's only so many. And to be truly successful in live service, not for a week, not for a month. If you're going to be successful live service, you need people playing for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You have to pull them away from Fortnite. You have to pull them away from Apex Legends. You have to pull them away from Destiny. You have to pull them away from Overwatch. You're competing with behemoths. You have to pull them away from Rocket League. I could just keep going. You have to pull them away from games they are already invested. Call of Duty Warzone. Tons of money, tons of time, and it's the go-to spot for them and their friends. And you have to pull them away from that, because Fortnite always has new content. Call of Duty Warzone always has new content. Rocket League always has new content. Apex Legends always has new content. There is no, I beat Fortnite, what is my next game? It's, I'm playing Fortnite tonight. I'm playing Fortnite with my friends tomorrow. I'm playing Fortnite with my friends tomorrow. I'm playing Fortnite with my friends tomorrow. For years and years and years. And you have to find a way to convince those people, I'm going to stop playing Fortnite. Or if I am going to play Fortnite, I'm going to play Fortnite less now, because now I'm going to this game. That is a hard freaking sell when these games have become so huge. I feel like the real arms race for service already happened and the winners are here. It's almost like the superpowers, right? It's very hard for any nation right now to become a superpower. And I know this is going to sound like a weird analogy, but think about it. Think about where I'm going here. It's very hard for a country that is not a superpower right now to come up and surpass the United States, to come up and surpass China, to come up and surpass, these other economic and military behemoths. It's very, very, very hard because they're already so established and they already have so much control and power. We're in a very similar boat with live service. Fortnite is already so powerful. Apex is already so powerful. Destiny is already so powerful. There's only so much to go around. And that doesn't mean live service can't be successful. That doesn't mean we're not going to see tons more successes and maybe even games come around to be as successful as Fortnite and Apex long term. It can happen. I'm not telling you it's impossible, but it's really freaking hard. It's so hard to do. So, again, I wouldn't say that we should, like, if I'm a publisher, like, I just never try to make a live service game, but I'm real careful with it. I'm like, we need a strong effing hook. We got to have real freaking good gameplay, and we got to be careful that you don't pull a Ubisoft and decide, I'm going to make 15 of these at once. It's like, let's try one. If we can succeed with one, then let's try two. So that's my thoughts on it. But yes, it's a hard nut to crack right now. Very hard nut to crack. Gamefire. It seems what have heard and seen that most people think that the Sony state of play was a C tier or below. What do you think, Benji? It was a bad state of play. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It was pretty bad. No offense to any of the games that were there, but I thought Suicide Squad by and large was underwhelming to most people. There was not very many big new announcements. The cool games that were there, like Street Fighter 6 and Resident Evil 4 Remake, both look great, but we've seen both so many times now that I feel like it doesn't generate much hype anymore. Like, not that I mean that people aren't excited for those games. They're massively excited for those games. But it's not one of those things anymore where it's like a bit of a mystery and wow, this is new and cool. It's like we've seen Resident Evil 4 Remake now a lot. And we've seen Street Fighter 6 now a lot. I think people are just ready for them to come out and play them. So they're not really generating hype whenever they're shown. It's more just like, okay, I'm ready to play this game. So, yeah, it was bad. It was a bad state of play. But that's not the end of the world. They have apparently a big showcase coming. But yes, the state of play was bad. I would rank it as a D or F. It was pretty bad. But again, it's not the end of the world. And there was some cool stuff there. I'm not trying to be insulting, but it was a bad state of play. Make sure there's no super chats. There is not. We're going to go for about 15 more minutes, and then I got to go. 15 more minutes, guys, and then I got to bounce. Sounds PP7. How big do you expect Mortal Kombat 12 to be? Let me make sure my mic still works, by the way. Good. I haven't been checking it this today, which I should have been, but... How big do you expect, this is from Sounds PP7, how big do you expect MK12 to be now that we know it's coming this year? And considering Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 are also out this year, could this be the biggest year for fighting games ever? So one thing I want to caution, because I keep seeing this brought up a lot, and I actually thought that it might be too, Tekken 8 is not confirmed for this year. It's only confirmed for this coming fiscal year. So Tekken 8 actually could be 2024. It could be early 2024. And apparently there's rumors, I'm not like... well versed in the fighting game community, but apparently there's rumors among the fighting game community that Tekken 8 is not coming until early next year. And honestly, if I was Tekken 8, I would wait now. If they were already kind of thinking maybe we go early next year, like January, February, or March before the fiscal year ends, now having it confirmed that MK12 is this year, I would like lock that in now. I would be like, I don't want to go to head with both Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. No offense to Tekken 8, it's going to be huge. It ain't going to be Mortal Kombat huge. That's just the reality. And Street Fighter 6 isn't going to be Mortal Kombat huge. I know the fighting game community kind of looks down on Mortal Kombat in a way. They're like, you know, this isn't as hardcore and awesome as Street Fighter. But in terms of like sales, dude, it ain't close. Mortal Kombat is the biggest. The only fighting game period that's bigger is Smash Bros. And Smash Bros isn't a traditional fighting game. I still consider it a fighting game, but it's not a traditional fighting game. Outside of that is Mortal Kombat. It kicks everyone's ass in terms of sales. Like, and Tekken's huge. It sold a ton of copies. It does not sell Mortal Kombat 12 copies. So, if I was them, again, and this is assuming that they were already thinking about early next year, I would now for sure go early next year. And I'd be like, okay, let Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have it out this year with each other, and we'll go early next year. That's how I would do it. I think that would be the best window for it. Mortal Kombat 12 is going to be huge. It's going to be giga enormous. It's going to be monstrous. It's going to be cataclysmically massive. I mean, how much more do you want me to say? It's going to be huge. Street Fighter 6 is also going to do extremely well. Way better than Street Fighter 5, in my opinion. It just looks like a way better game. Could this be the biggest year for fighting games ever? I mean, if all three of them are this year, it will be the biggest year for fighting games ever. If all three of them are this year. Even if it's only Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, it still might be. It still might be the biggest year ever. Because Mortal Kombat's going to sell over 10 million. And Street Fighter, dude, I think is going to be way bigger than 5. So even if Tekken's not this year, it still might be. Just with those two. But if they're all three this year, I think it's a lock. I see J-Cat. What is up, J-Cat? Great to see you. What is up, J-Cat? Thanks for helping mod the channel and being awesome. Eric Fairbrother, favorite fit for an autopsy song. I figure if you like Lorna Shore, you'd like fit for an autopsy. You know, I do like fit for an autopsy, but I'm not as big into them as a lot of people in the metal community are. I did really like that song off their newest album. Or that newest single they had, Walk With Me in Hell. That is good. I do like that song. Walk With Me in Hell is good. I do really like The Sea of Tragic Beasts. That is a pretty sick song. But you know, as weird as it is, you would think I'd be like a massive fan of them, and I like them. But I would say probably because I really like chugs. Like, I really like breakdowns. I like filthy, nasty breakdowns. And don't get me wrong, I love stuff that is not as well. I love blast beats. I love leads. I love solos. I love all of it. But to me, Fit for an Autopsy has some good breakdowns, but I really like destructive, crush your soul, you know, breakdowns. Like, that's my favorite thing. So I really like Lorna Shore. Really like Kublai Khan. I really like... let's see. Gideon is who I'm listening. I've been listening to some Gideon right now. They have an upcoming album. Gideon's got some pretty filthy breakdowns. Spite has some just freaking nasty breakdowns on Spite. The Ghost Inside has some sick breakdowns. Yeah, so for me, if you want to really win, and way more, like I could list, you know, tons and tons and tons. But if you really want to win my heart, Chelsea Grin has some nasty breakdowns. Yeah, that's the way to win my heart. You have some sick solos, you have some sick leads, you have some good blast beats, but you come in with a breakdown that's so heavy that my skull feels like it's going to explode. And Fit for an Autopsy has some breakdowns, but to me, they're not like breakdown kings. And I really like breakdowns. Sorry for the metal rant for non-metal heads. I think there might have been a super chat. There is. Reverse World with a 5 super chat. How does Xbox balance using Starfield to bolster Game Pass but also be a system seller? What is Xbox's reaction if it does better in sales compared to Game Pass? So in terms of like be a system seller while still on Game Pass, that's pretty easy just because like I think that Game Pass by itself is a system seller. I have people come in and tell me they're buying Xboxes for Game Pass. Like that happens fairly often now, which is interesting because that wasn't the case with the Xbox One. They've really done a very good job since the launch of the Xbox Series S of making Game Pass and Xbox synonymous as like the same thing in consumers' heads. Because I have now, I would say the vast majority now of Xbox consoles I sell at retail, people either tell me that they're signing up for Game Pass whenever they get it, or they're asking me about Game Pass before they buy it, or they say they're already a Game Pass subscriber. So I actually think Game Pass by itself is a system seller, and Starfield tied into Game Pass will also be a system seller. So I don't think it being on Game Pass in any way harms its system selling opportunity. In fact, I think it's a stronger system seller. Like I think it actually makes it even more powerful of a system seller by being part of Game Pass than outside of it. Now, in terms of sales, I would expect Starfield to take a huge hit on sales compared to something like, you know, Fallout 4, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, etc. Now, do I still expect this to sell a ton of copies? Yeah, especially on PC. Like, the gap, I think, in sales between Xbox console sales and PC sales will be massive because I think the Starfield will be huge on PC. Now, of course, it's also going to be huge on PC Game Pass, so it is going to cannibalize sales. Like we can clearly say now that, and I've been thinking this for a little while now, that Game Pass is cannibalizing sales. So expect Starfield to take a bit of a hit on sales, but I don't think that harms its system selling ability at all. In fact, I think it strengthens it by being part of Game Pass, and I don't think we need to wait to see Microsoft's reaction if its sales are better than Game Pass, because I don't think that will happen. I'm very confident this will perform stronger in Game Pass than it will in sales. So I do think you'll see a huge bump in Game Pass subscribers that quarter, though. Huge bump. All right, we are almost done. I've got about 7 minutes. The Deadly Eight, do you think Super Mario Odyssey sequel is in the works? Do you think a new Mario will launch with the next Nintendo console, cross-gen, Odyssey sequel, or new ideas? I don't know if it's going to be a sequel. I would if I was them, but definitely a new 3D Mario's in the works, and I expect that is going to be a launch window game for the next Switch. So that's probably what's happening and why you haven't seen one. I don't know, when I say launch window, I don't know if it's going to be the launch game. It might, but I think a 3D Mario will launch within the first 12 months of the next Switch console, and it will be cross-gen. Yes, both of those things. So definitely a new 3D Mario is already in the works, in my opinion, because I think the successor is close enough now. I think it will launch within the first 12 months of the next Switch, and I do think it will be cross-gen, yeah. Beatrice Mageles, I'm sure I did a very poor job on your name. I apologize. You think we'll get a PS Showcase soon or around summertime? Well, the rumors are it's before E3. My guess right now is May. Technically, that could be April. March is probably out the window because we're basically already in March, guys. It's the 24th. I just don't think that there's strong enough rumblings or indications that it will be March. So it's probably going to be April or May. And to me, May seems like the most likely. But you never know. It could be before that. But my guess is going to be May, Beatrice. Samuel Tobert, what is up, Samuel? Good friend of mine. Check out Samuel's work on Twitter and over at Windows Central. Great to see my guy. Yo, Benji, hope you are doing better now, bro. I'm improving. You know, I was in a bad spot, guys. Bad spot. But, you know, I'm doing better. Thank you. And these talks and seeing you guys is really helping me. With the state of play generally being considered unimpressive, what 3 things do you think Sony has to have at the next PlayStation Showcase? So they have to show Spider-Man 2, they have to show The Last of Us multiplayer, and they have to announce either Sucker Punch or Ben's new game. Those would be the 3. Those would be the 3. Those 3 have to be there. It's too early for Santa Monica, so that's why I'm not saying Santa Monica. It's too early for Naughty Dog for anything that's not their multiplayer game. And I think the 2 other studios that could like really drive hype for them are going to be Sucker Punch or Bend, depending on what they're working on. I mean, we all know, guys, spoiler alert, Sucker Punch is working on a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. Bend is a new IP, so who knows what that's going to look like. But those would be the 3 things, Sam. I mean, Spider-Man 2 is obviously going to be there. It's this year, and they haven't shown anything since they first announced it, but it's got to be there, and it's got to be there in a big way. So when I say Spider-Man's got to be there, I don't mean they show a minute of it. I mean, we need a big, beefy, either full-on gameplay showcase or really long trailer, like a beefy trailer. They got to show this Last of Us multiplayer game. It's been in development for years now. They keep telling us how it's ambitious and how they have, you know, artwork and stuff, but like we need to see what this is. So that needs to be there, especially capitalizing on the hype of the show. And the 2 studios I think right now that are probably like, they're going to be a little early, but they're close enough that they could announce and really drive hype, even if the games are still another year or 2 away, are either Bend or Sucker Punch. Those are the 3 I would say. Danger Man, 12 million without last gen as well proves that we don't need last gen consoles. Yeah, I know. I thought I'd get more questions about Hogwarts considering that performance wasn't a whole lot about it this chat, but yeah, the fact it did 12 million without last gen platforms, and I can tell you that the Switch pre-orders are tracking extremely strong, like Switch particularly, it's tracking way stronger than PS4 and Xbox One. The Switch version alone, just the Switch version, is going to add millions of sales. So, yeah, the fact that it's 12 million without last gen, if I was a publisher right now, I would not have a single game in development for last gen, unless it like is already far along. Like if you're going to launch like this year, you could probably still squeeze last gen out. If I was any publisher in the industry, any of them, doesn't matter what your level is, except for maybe Japan. Because Japan's, you know, they're a little weird. They're a little different. No offense. Love Japan. But, you know, they're a little different. They like to hold on to their consoles for a really, really long time after the generation starts. So, Japan, maybe not. But I would say if I'm any Western publisher, from literally January 1st, 2024 on, even if you have one like in development right now, but it's not even close to being done, just cancel it. You don't need it. It's done. Last gen's done. It's donezy. It's over. It's dead. Switch, but everything else is dead or dying, especially, by the way, once we hit 2024. Once we have an entire another year and holiday season behind us, last gen is dead. So just stop. We don't need it. It's over. Move on. But, you know, if you're still launching this year, you might be able to squeeze it out. But, no, nobody else. I think there might have been a couple super chats here right at the end. Yeah, because I'm about to go, guys. I got to go to work today. So I'm going to hit these 3 super chats, and then I actually have to go. Apologize for any questions that I'm not going to be able to get to, but let me hit these 3 super chats. MD here saying, Benji out here 10-7 depression. Keep it up, bro. Well, MD, thank you so much. I just want you guys to know, if any of you out there are struggling with depression or anxiety, because I've had a huge resurgence of both, no, you're not alone. And one thing I got to tell you guys, don't listen to the negative things that your brain tells you. And again, guys, this is coming from experience. My mind tells me some very hateful and crazy things sometimes. And if you're one of those people that also experiences that, like if your mind's telling you can't do things, if your mind's telling you to live in fear, which is a strong one for me, a lot of fear. If you're someone that's afraid a lot, you know, and I'm not like, it's not like afraid like, ooh, ghosts, jump scares, you know, afraid of life. You got to overcome it, you know, just 10-7 that thing, like he said, you know, you got to just don't listen to it. It's not true. You know, sometimes our own minds can be our own worst enemies. So if you're going through that, keep up the fight. Do not give in. And, you know, if you need to reach out to someone, if you need to talk to somebody, make sure you do it. Okay. So thank you for that super chat, MD. Benji here with a 5. Hi, Benji. We've seen Redfall and Gotham Knights already as a squad base as multi-online shooter recently. Is Suicide Squad confirm a growing trend? Ooh, I would say the opposite. I think Suicide Squad is doomed to not do well. And I hope I'm wrong. But I think this trend is actually going away. Except for like major players. I would say co-op can be successful. But I would say, like we talked about a lot earlier, if you didn't see it at Benji, I would say games as a service, like the long-term success, real hard to find. So I'll just reiterate what I said before. I'm not confident in Suicide Squad at all. Might have a big month 1, actually. I could see it with casuals getting a big month 1, because people forget Avengers did. Avengers had a huge opening, but Avengers then fell off a cliff. I could see Suicide Squad doing something very similar. Big upfront sales that first week or 2, doing really strong with the Rocksteady name on it. Those commercials, by the way, guys, ain't going to show you the kind of things that we saw where it's just like Deadshot hovering in the air for like 30 seconds just shooting a purple orb. That's not going to be what they show. They're going to make it look real cinematic. They're going to say from the creators of the Batman Arkham series, you know, Suicide Squad. They're going to make it look like it's this big single player type thing, but with like cool little co-op things. Like, it'll be a short, you know, 30-second TV spot. And that's the sort of thing that will sell to casuals who aren't as, like, you know, invested in gaming. So first week or 2, maybe actually pretty strong sales. But I would expect, unless the quality surprises, this thing to fall off a cliff after that, like Avengers did. And then the second super chat here with the 10. Thank you so much, Benji. Great to see you back. We are all behind you. Well, I just want to say, guys, before I wrap this up, I appreciate all of the comments I got. So many comments. I appreciate all the people that reached out in DMs. I apologize that I didn't respond to like any of that because for a few days I was like gone from social media. Like, not even just I was away from my YouTube chats. I wasn't even really looking at my Twitter account because I just like really had to get my head right because I was in bad spot, worst spot I've been in a long time. And so I appreciate all those comments. I appreciate all those messages. It did give me energy to keep fighting. It did give me strength to keep going. So thank you guys so much for all of that. It means the world to me. All right, everyone. I got to call the chat there because I have to go to work. So thank you so much for making this chat happen, guys. Thank you so much for making the last 4 chats do over 1,000 views, which this chat has never done before that many times consecutively. I expect a viewership drop for this one since we were away for a few weeks. But hopefully we can just like get right back on track there. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the support. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do one of these chats every single week. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. That's where I'm the most active and where I do the most stuff. And as always, everyone, stay safe, play some games, and I will see you either next time here on YouTube next week, or I will see you here on Twitter very, very soon. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one. Bye, 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 bye.